every now and then we get a new race day shoe or super shoe or the next big thing in innovation when it comes to running. And HOKA has been pushing the boundaries since the very beginning, since max cushion running shoes, and now transitioning into some really fast race day options. A couple years ago, maybe even 3 or 4 years ago, you would sit here and say, I'm not entirely sure that HOKA has a premium race day option available, and now they've got a lot of really good running options from daily trainers all the way up to super shoes. And HOKA has really leaned into road running performance, and there's no better way to show that than with the new Cielo X1 2.0. This is the second version of the Cielo that they've come out with, but this one is completely revamped. It's pretty much an entirely new running shoe, and from top to bottom, there are a ton of changes in this one. This is one of the weirdest and one of the most exciting and just, I don't know, it's just a crazy underfoot feeling in this shoe. When I think of running shoes and I think of race day shoes, this is definitely one that's gonna now come to mind. Beyond this shoe having high levels of innovation and technology in it, this shoe is the premium or the top of the line, right? So this is the Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles, if you will, of the Super Bowl clash. This is the best of the best, and it doesn't really get higher than this premium tier type of race day option. It's supposed to be premium, it's supposed to be high performance, it's supposed to go fast, and it's supposed to get you that PR. This right here is our Super Bowl. So let's just dive into it and get into all the nitty gritty and break this shoe down. But before we can do that, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we continue to put out new videos. Let's just start with the upper, and the upper is completely redesigned. Moving away from the knit upper, they've gone into an engineered jacquard mesh, which is a more translucent upper, which is pretty similar to what I remember seeing in the Rocket X. The heel collar and tongue are very thin. The tongue is not gusseted, and you can tell that this shoe is all about weight savings. The overlays are minimal, the heel is minimal, there isn't much padding to the tongue here, and it has a really nice race-like fit with just enough room in the toe box. And what's actually really cool about this shoe is that the overlays are 3D printed on. Not only are they saving weight, but they are using new levels of innovation to create something here. And I really like that. I think that's pretty cool. But overall, from a fit perspective, I found that this shoe fit really well for me. We had some mixed reviews on our team, but overall, we didn't have too many issues when it came to fit. But if you want to figure out whether this shoe or another race day shoe is going to fit best for you, like say the HOKA Rocket X2 or the Cielo X1, you can go into your local Fleet Feet store and go get your foot scanned and go through the Fit ID and outfitting experience, and they'll be able to tell you what race day option is going to fit best for you. Especially when it comes to race day, you want to make sure you have that perfect lockdown and fit. So why wouldn't you just go the extra mile to just make sure that you go get your foot scanned and try the shoe on for yourself? Let's move on to the midsole, and the midsole is made up of a new winged carbon fiber plate. The shoe is pretty similar in DNA and makeup. There's still a dual layer PEBA in here, so there's PEBA on the top of the shoe and there's PEBA on the bottom of the midsole here. And in the middle, it's got that carbon fiber plate. It still has the Meta Rocker technology in it. So it has a lot of the same fundamentals that we saw in the previous Cielo X1. But what they've done is they've created a model here that is much more aggressive in the forefoot. And that's one of the big key takeaways and one of the big performance drivers in this shoe that's different from the previous one. And just another thing to talk about, but the medial cutout here and some of the cutouts in this shoe have changed sides. So there's still cutouts in the heel and some in the center here and around the toe, but the medial cutout, which is right here, this used to be on the other side and it's now on this side of the shoe, which I think is pretty interesting. But like I mentioned, the story here is really in that forefoot. And what HOKA's actually done is they've created a forefoot focused active foot frame, which really just forces you to land more on your forefoot. For some runners, who already run on their forefoot or enjoy running on their forefoot a little bit more, or maybe landing more on their toes, what it does is it creates a nice propulsive feeling and it just rocks you forward more. But for some people, they might not enjoy something like that. So it's really just a matter of preference and feel and what you're into. I personally don't mind the feeling of being rocked onto my toes every now and then, especially if it's a race day option. But for a daily trainer, maybe that's not always what I'm looking for, and I don't want to always be forced onto my toes. It doesn't necessarily change the way that you run per se, but it is going to change the way that the run feels. And one thing that we just can't leave out of race day shoes right now is that there is a lot of stack in them, and this one included. The drop of this shoe comes in at 7 millimeters, but for the women's model with 46 millimeters in the heel and 39 in the toe, and for the men's model at 48 in the heel and 41 in the toe, this shoe is not race legal by any standard of the imagination. If you are a professional runner and you want to run in this shoe, your world record isn't going to count. But for the rest of us who are not professional runners, definitely take this one for a spin. So what? Let's break the rules. Let's go over the 40 millimeters and let's just go rock it and run in this shoe and run super fast. Maybe we'll get that nice PR. And as for the outsole, not too much to talk about here other than there are cutouts for that weight saving like I mentioned, and there is traditional rubber in the heel and in the forefoot, but it doesn't wrap through the entirety of the shoe, and I think that's just more for weight savings and just focusing on the areas where most of the traction is going to be happening. And now let's move on to the ride and performance and really break this thing down. And the team found that compared to the previous model, this one has a lot more cushioning and bounce to it. HOKA has claimed that the Cielo X1 2.0 has been updated with a more aggressive rocker profile, sort of like we talked about earlier, coupled with enhanced forefoot cushioning, and it really shows. That is the big thing about this shoe, is that you're going to land much more on your toes, and that rocker profile is just pushed forward. And not only can you see it when the shoe is just sort of laying flat on the ground, but our entire review team felt it too. And for one of our reviewers, Max, he took this shoe out for a short tempo run, and a few things immediately stood out to him. They felt bouncier and softer than the original version, and the placement of the cushioning is extremely unique with the new rocker profile, and he found that it's actually much more aggressive, which is resulting in those really nice, smooth, and fast turnovers. So he really liked it, but it definitely is more on the aggressive side, like he said. And for Kate, who tested the previous Cielo, and she actually found that it was like one of her favorite race day shoes last year. It's one of the shoes that she laces up and puts on all the time to race in, and I think she actually PR'd in that shoe as well at some local races she ran in. She absolutely loved the Cielo X1, and now to see the second one, she was really excited to test this one out. And she actually tested this shoe out on a 13-mile workout, and she found that the cushioning was softer than the original, much like Max, and she felt like the Cielo had two separate cushions of foam in it between the heel and the forefoot, so she just kind of felt like maybe the densities were a bit different. I kind of agree with her. When I was running in this shoe, I did find that there were different densities maybe in the heel versus the forefoot, and that might be due to the displacement of just the shape of the shoe, and just it's a little bit wider in the forefoot, the carbon fiber plate. There's a lot of factors behind why that might feel that way. For me specifically, it felt softer in the heel and much more aggressive in the forefoot. But she did find that the shoe is high in energy and very propulsive, which she did feel gave her a speed advantage. And even though the shoe did give her that nice speed advantage that she was looking for, since she was on her toes so much, both Max and her did find that after they were done running in the shoe, their calves were just a little bit more sore than usual. I didn't necessarily feel this, but honestly, I gotta take it out for a few more runs and maybe I'll feel it that way. But I don't know, maybe everyone runs a little bit differently and everyone's expectation of what they want in a running shoe is a little bit different. So I'm not sure, it might just come down to personal preference, but I have heard that most people do find that this shoe is nice and aggressive in the forefoot. And one of the big advantages of this shoe versus the previous one is the big drop in weight. I mean, overall, this shoe is completely redesigned and the weight has lost a lot too. For the men's model, this shoe comes in at 8.1 ounces or 229 grams. grams, and for the women's model at 6.8 ounces and 192 grams. That is a very light speed day and race day shoe, especially for someone who's looking to run the half or the full marathon in it. And this shoe remains at $275, which is what it was in the previous model, and this shoe falls into a similar feel and category to that of the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2 and the Nike Alpha Fly 3. But if you want to learn even more about race day shoes or HOKA shoes in general, you can check them out on our blog at fleetfeet.com or right here on our YouTube channel, where we're posting videos of new shoes that are coming out every week.